Welcome to Shelve, Store, or Sell. This is the show where I go through my massive comic book collection, some of which I have not seen outside of boxes for over half a decade at this point, and decide, do I want to put it on display on shelves where I'm going to reference it and see it all the time? Is it going to stay in the stacks in over 100 comic book boxes down in my garage? Or is it time to give it the boot? So we are in the middle of a box that we started last episode. It is box 1016, and that box is labeled Marvel E through GH, no FF, which we realized that it began with Elektra, it ends with Ghost Rider, and it does not have Fantastic Four in the middle. But this next thing, I did not realize that I owned, and so I just bought it again, and now I'm angry. Let's go. It's the Eternals. So these are some beat up, dinged up, ding dang old trades here of Kirby's Eternals. This has 1 through 11. This has 12 through 19 in Annual 1. These are kind of like the size and quality of classic collections. They've got that like almost creamy colored paper from classic collections. This was printed in 2008. And I can tell you based on how there's like a big ding on one of these corners. And that is not the quality that I would usually, oh, it's this one. It's not the quality I would usually go after books in. So I remember these were really hard to get. There was the Eternals Omnibus. It was one of the smaller omnibuses because it only had these 20 issues in it. And then there was, there were these. And I was like, well, I guess that's the only way I'm going to get to read the Eternals if I ever read them. So I bought them and then promptly completely forgot because I didn't really have like a shelf with Eternals on them. And this was really my only Eternals for a while, I think. Just like looking into the box to see if that was true. So I completely forgot that I bought them. Now, of course, I have this beautiful modern reprint of the Eternals. It has all of the same material. And if we were to stack them up against each other, it's not even like the paper is that different because even with cover boards, it's almost exactly the same width. So I think this is the preferred version now. It's newer. It has it all in one book. It's not a little dinged up. So these are sell. I mean, I don't know if anybody would buy them because this book exists now. They might be like a donate to library more than a sell, but they're out of here because we got a better version. But here's what really frustrates me. So there's a relatively new collection of the Eternals called the Dreaming Celestial Saga that collects Eternals 1 through 12 in 1985, which had never been collected before. It's a Peter Gillis actually kicks it off story, but we're not here to talk about All Around the World stuff. Here it is very, very recently collected in the beginning of 2021. I assumed, why would I have a 12 issues Eternal series from 1985? That would be crazy talk, Peter, except for here it is, the complete 12 issue series in really, really beautiful shape. And this Eternals special from 1991 that I didn't realize I had. And the new Eternals Apocalypse Now that I didn't realize that I had. Clearly this was going to be a bind. I mean, it's a perfect size for a bind. It does have this one square bound issue, so that I wouldn't be able to bind it through the spines in like a Smythe sewing because that doesn't have a spine that you can sew through because it's perfect round. But this is a perfect little lot. I think I'm going to put this together and be like, hey, get the complete Eternals, from like 1976 through 2001, I think. Go for it. And just put it up on, we don't have eBay here in New Zealand. Things are different. But yeah, that's a sell, baby. Especially because I think those other smaller Eternals issues, I just did an Eternals guide. I think they've been collected. Okay, so interesting note on that. That last one, the Apocalypse Now one-shot, that was collected in the Eternals Complete Saga Omnibus, which really has every possible Eternals thing from the beginning in 1976 through that issue, actually. That's the last issue in it sequentially. It has not, at this time, been reprinted in a paperback. Neither has that other one-shot, which is called The Herod Factor. So I do think they're going to be available digitally if I were to look on Marvel Unlimited. But yeah, because I have a link on my guide. There's an Eternals guide, so that's how I know this, because I did a guide. But they're not a paperback. And I don't know what paperback they would go in because there's not really a lot of other material in Eternals after that 1985 series. It goes to the 1985 series, and then the next big Eternal story is The Herod Factor. So I don't know about a sell on these two. Like, I hate to just keep 2 issues. I'm never going to bind them, but you kind of need them for your Eternals read. So maybe I'm not going to put them up for sale. Maybe not. So then we get into the mid-2000s Eternals revival, which started out being revived by, being revived by Neil... Well, that's not good. Revived by Neil Gaiman. And I have that. So then I have this first one, Eternals 1 through 6. Wait, that's not first. What's first? I have this one, Eternals by Neil Gaiman, 1 through 7. And then I have this next series by Charles and Daniel Knopf, 1 through 6. And then that continues and has some X-Men tie-in. So, woohoo, X-Men. 7 through 9 in Annual 1. I've never read them. I will get to read them eventually. So here's the thing, like, this is where I really debate about this whole shelf store sell. At a point, Marvel Unlimited didn't exist. And at a point it did exist, but it did not have the scope. And so, like, I wanted a room that I could walk into that would just have all of Marvel in a room. And I'm pretty darn close to that. Now, though, I look at these, like, 2008 series that are on Marvel Unlimited. I'm like, do I need that book? Like, am I ever going to read that book as a book? Like, I'm going to read it eventually, but am I probably going to read it on Marvel Unlimited? Maybe, but I'm not yet at the point that I'm ready to start liquidating my complete everything Marvel everything. I'm just not there mentally yet. Right now, the point is to get rid of, like, duplicated stuff and stuff that I'm just never ever going to read. So that goes back into storage because we don't like the Eternals so much that we have a shelf. So next, I have these 2 Gambit Classic volumes. And what's interesting about these is that they're kind of different from one another in a way. This first Gambit Classic has his initial 3 appearances in Uncanny X-Men, and then has Gambit 1 through 4. And then this Gambit Classic has Rogue 1 through 4, because Gambit does appear in that. And then the next Gambit 1 through 4. And then basically after that comes his lengthier ongoing series. Now, I have all of those comics in floppy, and at one point I put together all of the possible Gambit appearances, like from his first appearance up until his series outside of X-Men. He's like in Nomad at one point. He's like in Moon Knight or something. I don't know, at one point. And I was going to make a book called The Gambit Companion because it's really fun to, like, read him as the other writers at Marvel realize that he's hot and he's fun to use. So I originally was going to maybe put this stuff in the companion, but maybe not. The other thing is, though, I happen to have the originals of Gambit's first appearance. It was in my first Sears catalog Marvel assortment of comic books, actually. And they're in pretty good condition. So I would absolutely sell those. I'm a mercenary when it comes to floppies. Unless it's like a floppy that, like, somebody special bought for me, I have no allegiance to floppies once I get stuff in collected edition. So, like, if I sell those floppies, I'm certainly not going to bind like a hundreds of dollar comic book. And no. So if I sell those floppies, I'm going to want these classics because that will create my shelf continuity for Gambit. Will they eventually redo those in a complete collection? Yes. Have they already? Maybe. But these were the classics and they cover it just fine. So we're going to stick with those. They're keep. Okay. And then the end of this box is something that I don't know a whole heck of a lot about, which is the beginning, oh my gosh, of Ghost Rider. Now, you've heard about my completionism. And as I was going through this phase of wanting to complete everything, I realized the best way to tackle the 90s, because pre-Epic Collection, 90s stuff was not collected. Like, unless you were X-Men or like Spider-Man Clone Saga, 90s stuff from Marvel was so under-collected at the beginning of the last decade. And I was like, well, I want it all. And plus, a lot of times, if something hasn't been collected, it's not a Marvel Unlimited, because that's when they restore it to make it for digital. So if it was not collected, it was like a double-edged sword. It was also not available digitally. So I just made a list of all of these 90s series, like Ghost Rider, which I think starts in 90. And I was like, I'm just going to get a lot of them on eBay. Because what winds up happening is that, like, the first 3 or 4 issues are really expensive because they're the early issues and people put a premium on them. And then the late issues in the run are, like, mega expensive. I remember looking for, like, Ghost Rider 92 or 93, I think this run ends on, and they were like 30, 40 bucks for that one issue. I'm like, I just wanted to put it in a freaking bind. And so then I discovered that if you just bought a whole run of Ghost Rider 1 through there, it would maybe be like 200 bucks, but that's nothing in total because you're getting it for like $2 a book, which includes these early issues that are pricey and the late issues that are pricey and the middle issues, which anybody probably would move for 10 cents if they could. So I just bought a complete Ghost Rider, and this is why I have all these boxes, because I just went through a period that I would make my book budget every month and I'd be like, okay, what are we going to do this month? Ghost Rider. What are we going to do this month? Doctor Strange. And I would just buy them all. Now, for most of them, they've been covered by Epic Collections already. You'll see when we get to Doctor Strange, that stuff is not to spoil, but that's just going to be a sell because it's in Epic Collections now and omnibuses. Who cares if I have it in singles? But Ghost Rider does not have an Epic line yet. And even when they do an Epic line for Ghost Rider, it's so entwined at different points with the Blaze series, the Midnight Suns other series. I don't know that they're going to Epic it in a way that I'm completely satisfied by. So that is one that I'm like really going to hold on to probably until I see how it's collected. And it feels like we're years out from that at this point. But while we're here, I mean, what's the fun of having all these classic comic books if we don't open them sometimes? So here's my very good condition. No, I lied. It's not. copy of Ghost Rider #1. Here's why it's not. It's got a little notch on the bottom, if you can see. But that's the thing. I would buy these in lots, and I'm not a big condition, person, because I was just going to bind them in a book anyway. They're going to get cut. The spines are going to get sewn through. They're going to get trimmed on the edges. So this is not a great condition copy now that I'm looking at it closely. It's got some wear on the top edge there. The most important thing to me was that the spines were good. Like a rolled spine is a problem because if the spine is rolled, then when they go to sew it, it's going to catch some of the spine in the sew and it's not going to open up that well. But the interior pages are in good shape. I mean, they've got a little bit of yellowing of age, but this is a 30-year-old comic. But it's in really good shape. Ghost Rider. Where's the panel where he turns into Ghost Rider? This early Ghost Rider, they didn't used to put creators on the covers. This first one is penciled by Javier Salteras, who I am not familiar with, but later Texiera is drawing it, and his Ghost Rider transformations are just so beautiful and cool. And the colors, like it's almost got like a neon quality to it. Let me put this one back in and see if we can... it's not all about just shuffling these books from one pile to another, right? Like if I've got all these gorgeous books, let's enjoy them. Ooh, this one's still in a poly bag. I wonder how many hundreds of dollars I can get for that one. I mean, spoiler, we're not going to open anything that's in a poly bag right now. No siree. Oh, hey. So in the middle of this Ghost Rider run, I also have interspersed Spirits of Vengeance, which was his series with Blaze, his brother. So, see, this neon ink stuff, I am such an easy mark for this. So what this is called is fifth color printing a lot of the time. I mean, it could be a build. That pink could be a build from other colors. But on a CMYK printer, sometimes if you have one really vivid, almost like popping out color, that's not a built color. They would actually pay to have a tank of that color on the printer, and it's called fifth color printing because it's not the cyan, the magenta, the yellow, or the black. It's a fifth color, and so that's where you get these really vibrant spot colors that maybe aren't a build. I know that they did fifth color printing on some of these Spirit of Vengeance covers. I don't know if this is one of them because it's just a regular issue, but yeah. And let's see who's the artist on this. This is actually in pretty good shape. I should be. And again, I'm absolutely certain I just got this as a lot, and there's no hint of it being reprinted. So why wouldn't I, right? This is cool. Like I'm excited to read this. There's some 90s stuff where I'm like, nah, like it's not my fave. I don't have an attachment to the character. This is Adam Kubert as a penciler. Wow, I did not know that. So I'm excited for this, legitimately. And am I going to sit down and read it in floppies? That's the thing. You see this whole nonsense here as I like try not to damage this comic. I could not possibly care about this life at this age that I am, in this place in life that I am. I can't get it back in the bag. I just don't care. I don't ever want to be responsible for that, which is funny because I'm responsible for like tens of thousands of them, which is why we're having this show. So the chances of me reading anything in pure floppy anymore is like approaches zero. I just could not possibly care. Would I read them if I got them bound into a nice book? Absolutely. Because then I don't have to worry about this preciousness, right? And you would argue, well, Peter, do you have to worry about the preciousness if you're going to get them bound into a book anyway? Because once they're in a book, then you don't have to have it be precious anymore because they're in a book. And if they're going to go in the book, you don't have to be precious now. But I just want to keep my things nice. I have two more that I want to show you that are really cool. So this is part of a crossover. Here we go. And it's all black. It's this really textured black cover. And it does have some like rough finish on it, but it's not an image. It's just like a faux leather kind of thing. But that's cool. And then it has this inner cover too. Now, you know what's funny? At the time when you were buying these comics, you would never not want the special issue, right? You would be like, give me that freaky black cover. I need it. It's got like a gold ink sort of. I mean, it's nice. It's cool. Oh, here, look, it's a special invitation. Ew. So, oh, it has the reading order. That's cool. I mean, we could all admit that's cool. And it says, I have kept this really nice. Or whoever sold it to me kept it really nice. But here's the thing. Now, when you're starting to go through like binds and stuff and you want to see all the art from the 90s, I find that frequently I actually want the regular cover. Because the regular, this is going to stick out weirdly in a bind because this cover paper is like a different texture than all the other paper. So it's going to kind of like the book's going to like always open to that point because this paper is thicker. So now, in retrospect, do I wish I had bought the regular version at some point? Yes. Especially when they have these like freaky chromium holograph, whatever colors, like covers, they don't go well in a bind. I just want to show one more though. This is what I mean by fifth color printing. You can't build this pink. This is a fifth color printing. I can just tell. It's like, it's vibrating. It's definitely an overprint, and it's definitely a fifth color. So anyway, I have this whole Ghost Rider Spirits of Vengeance, Spirits of Vengeance, Spirits of Vengeance. I probably just put it in because and then I have this other series, Blaze, Legacy of Blood. Many of these have not been collected. They did a number of Ghost Rider collections that had some of the big crossovers, so maybe that specific crossover has been collected, but not all of Ghost Rider in between, and not all of the supporting series and stuff. So it's really fun to map because they cross over so much. It's like, would you want to repeat books in each of your binding maps, or would you have some books that are kind of hub books that have the whole crossover, and then other books will go around them? Really interesting stuff. So I'm absolutely excited, and this is one of the things, like I said, because who knows if they're going to do the epics right, in my conception of right. So who knows? I might still bind them anyway. This is one of the Marvel books that I'm really proud to have all of. I'm really excited to read, and even if some of it's schlocky, I don't care. I just like Ghost Rider, and so I'm really excited by this. This is absolutely a store. It's not a shelf because, you know. Now I know some people, like my very good friend Freya, who actually get those like magazine boxes that are kind of like a cut V on the side, and they will and they'll wrap art around them. They'll either get them printed or just print themselves and do a craft project and wrap the art. And then they'll put all of these on the shelf, and the outside will just be like Ghost Rider. I actually kind of really like that. I think if I was more regularly binding things, and I was like getting through my binds more regularly, let's just put this down. That would be cool, because I would just swap out whatever was upcoming to bind, and I would put it on the shelf, and I would get to appreciate it and make sure it was in the right order, and then I would send it off, and then I would just put another thing on it. But just because I have so many bound books already on the shelves, that's not as attractive to me. That's the end of this box. So clearly the rest of that Ghost Rider run is in a subsequent box. Probably with some other Ghost Rider hardcovers, paperbacks, collections that came after that. So how did we do in this box? There was not a single shelve, which is kind of a bummer, but there was material that I will shelve. Like, I'm probably going to shelve those new Eternals books, the new prints of them. I'm just not going to like shelve those old ones because they were a sell. And Ghost Rider, I would sell or shelve, but I want to get it bound first. So it's not like I don't like any of the material in this box. And then Elektra, which was from the previous episode, I would probably shelve that if I had like infinite space, which I just don't. I'm kind of split up across multiple rooms right now. So stuff like that, I'd rather just store and keep nice until I'm ready to get it out. So pretty good in the selling. We have that whole Eternals run, and we have some of those Elektra books from last episode, and everything else, I don't even know if I could pick it up. Oh my gosh. And plus it has these two Eternals books in the middle, which are huge. Oh my gosh, this is our store. So partial success in that we got some stuff to sell, but all those are going back in the box. If you want to see me continue to do this, chime in. I have a lot of Marvel, but it's not just Marvel. I do have some DC. I have some 90s indie stuff. I have some, I don't know, what else is that? Oh, Image. I have a whole lot of Wildstorm, and you've seen one episode of that. So I'll be back to open more boxes and show you more of the contents of my collection that I've hauled around the world with me with great effort, cost, and intent. And we will figure out if I'm going to shelve, store, or sell. So until next time, I've been Crisis with a K, and this is Shelve, Store, Sell, presented by Crushing Comics, and I hope that you're well.